sure everyone knows who
Sure,
people are.
yeah.
I'm Greg Logan, I'm a voting member on the zoning board of appeals, vice chairman.
So Greg has been appointed to be the board's working, session member.
Okay. Everybody knows that. Chris D'Agostino, I'm counsel for the developer.
Peter Williams, GZA, peer review for the board.
I'm, Marguerite Mitchell, I'm counsel for the zoning board of appeals.
I'm Faisal Hussain with Niche Engineering, I'm a traffic engineer, we're doing the peer review for traffic.
Greg Driscoll, Jacobs Driscoll Engineering, the engineer for the developer. Owen Kelly, Discovery Fields Estates.
Paul Cusson, consultant to the developer.
Bishar Hashem, the developer.
So, I figured I'd just kind of set the framework for what we're trying to accomplish today, and I know we discussed it briefly when we were at the last public hearing, but the idea of a work session is to try to get better communication as to the details of some of the project design elements that we all heard during the public hearing, but that the developer is now tasked with translating into the final plan or the plan set that is going to continue to evolve. It's tough to really have an open dialogue or an open discussion when you're in the context of a public hearing, with the board on one side and the applicant on the other and the audience. So this is an opportunity, if you wanna interrupt me. I mean, obviously, we're all professionals and we're all trying to, get our points across and share our ideas. But this is supposed to be a dialogue, so, feel free to share whatever thoughts, you have on the original application, how it's evolved to date, the comments that we heard during the public hearing, and then what we're going to discuss tonight. So in that context, we do plan to show what we took away from the public hearing as far as some of the back and forth we had about maybe proposing an alternate layout that includes varying building typology. So varying building structures as opposed to the original just single-family proposal that we had. We heard from certain elements in town, certain town officials, that there may be a need for varying housing types in Dayton rather than just all single-family homes. So having heard that at the hearing, we went back, did some homework, and came up with a concept plan that we'd like to, say, or like to just discuss among the peer review experts, the town council, and the single member of the board here, in order to get the idea that no, this isn't what we were talking about, this isn't what I heard at the hearing, versus, I heard these things at the hearing, this idea was discussed, these concerns were discussed, how did you address those in your proposal? Now, to be clear, no decisions are made tonight at a work session. This is just about getting feedback in the context of a dialogue that we will then take back, and we will hopefully, maybe at the next hearing, present another evolution of the plan. And usually what happens is the board member that participated in the work session explains what he heard or what the discussion was, not in detail, because obviously this is open to the public, people could have attended and listened if they wanted to, but just some of the thoughts that you took away from the dialogue that you can then sort of represent to the public and represent to the board, and then we take it from there. So with that, I think I'm gonna turn it over to Bishar, and he'll explain what he heard at the last hearing and how we have taken what we heard and introduced it as a concept in this conceptual plan that we'd like to get some feedback on hopefully tonight, and maybe additional concerns that were heard during the public hearing, and then we'll take it from there. Apparently, we also have the board's traffic expert. I know there was some discussion. We presented our initial traffic report at the last hearing, and we got feedback about certain specific conditions existing in and around the entrance or the proposed entrance that the peer review, the board's peer review expert, I guess, has heard or should continue to hear, And then we're hoping that he'll produce a response to our report that may outline either some additional information he'd like to see, some additional detail, or additional aspects of our traffic arrangement that we'll then present back to the peer review expert. So with that framework, you know, unless Marguerite, you have anything additional to add, you know, let Bisher discuss where we are in terms of our evolution of the proposal.
That's fine, go ahead.
Okay, what, the feedback that we got from several departments, but particularly the zoning board, that they'd like to see a multi-use development, not just a straight single-family house, which, because there is a need in town, and actually this is a trend that's pretty prevalent now, having, you know, different use development. So what we're suggesting here is 3 types of.
Which one am I doing? I'm gonna pass some of these,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, make sure everybody's got a
Yeah,
copy of
I've
it.
got another full one too. Copy.
3 different styles. This is like a.
Fisher, you're saying multi-use, are we saying multi?
Yeah, sorry, to clarify,
Well, housing type.
varying
Multi-housing.
housing types,
Varying.
it's all residential,
All
and it's all for sale,
All for
correct?
sale.
All for
All
sale,
for
all
sale.
residential,
Yeah, okay.
a different type,
Typology.
typology, right. So this here is a very new concept, which is called, some people call it pocket neighborhood, some people call it cottage style, which we have done in a different town. And we're gonna show you also a video of fly over those subdivisions that we have done. Very successful, very desirable, very trendy, where, you know, each person, it's condo, but it's detached condo, whereby each person owns their own unit, but it's on common land, and each unit has its open air patio right here, surrounded by a fence, so they have their own privacy and their own like barbecue if they want to.
Exclusive use.
But they, pardon me?
For their exclusive
For the
use.
exclusive use, and so they have open air use and all that, but they don't have to worry about shoveling snow or maintaining a yard. The association does that for a fee, of course. And a lot of demand for that, you know, for empty nesters who just wanna go sometimes in the winter down to Florida, or wanna, you know, year-round live here, but they wanna take 2 weeks off and fly off someplace. Or young families young couples, not families, very few families. I don't think we've sold, except for affordable units, I don't think we've sold, any family bought a house with kids. We do have like a couple that they may have, young couples buying here, and then as soon as they have baby, you know, they'll still live there, but when they become school age, they move on to a little bit, you know, more, bigger units, with bigger yards.
If I'm Bishop, that looks like a postcard, it looks like, you know, that's actually built.
I just drove by one in Plymouth on Cherry Street, just identical to that right now.
We're gonna show you a fly-through of actual live.
I just wanna say something though.
Sure.
After talking about what we discussed about the town administrators bringing up multiple use type homes and all this stuff, they're bringing it up in the meeting. The condo thing, from what I was understanding, is not allowed in our town, condos. I know she said condos in the meeting.
It would be under 40B.
It
Well,
would-
Paul, hold on, I
So
mean,
I'm just saying for.
The
for
standard
our-
usage.
Yeah.
I personally don't mind this, I'm just stating that I'm amongst the members of the board, I'm not sure that's gonna be what they're looking for. I like that look, I think that's really nice.
Now,
Now, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Those are gonna have condo association fees,
Mhm.
private roads, 2 parking for household,
yes.
one with a garage possibly, one without, or no garages.
Yeah, no, some with garages, some without, you know, but they will definitely have at least 2 parking spots.
And how many do you propose to put in on a project? like that?
26.
26 of those,
Yeah.
okay.
Now,
so
the
just,
fact,
I'd like to hear, closing the loop, I just wanna fully understand, if there was some feedback that you heard.
Yeah.
What's the concern about condos, just to understand it first?
What I don't wanna talk for the board.
No, you're not,
But,
absolutely.
after this all came about is, that if you look in our bylaws, Dayton does not want condos.
But that's what created the
I
need.
understand what 40B is.
Yeah, yeah. But-
Yeah, I know
but
that's what created it.
The idea
and
is,
that's the new
because the
concept of
bylaws
it.
don't allow it, that created
So
that.
that's
the need.
interesting, and
Yeah.
obviously, we can get the board some information on that, I'll take a look at what the bylaw says, but I'm 90% sure that the tenure of ownership type, condo, rental, ownership,
But they own it.
well, I don't think that can be regulated. I don't, and I'm gonna take a look at it, so I'd be curious, number one, to see what the bylaw says.
But
and
they
Marguerite,
do
I don't
own
know
it.
if
They
you
do
have-
own it.
They do own it.
Yeah.
They own a
They own-
condo, though.
Yeah,
Right,
but
they
so
own- they own
What we
the-
allowed is what they call, well, I guess you call it multi-family, is one person would buy the entire thing and rent out
No.
the other. That's not the situation.
What do you mean the other? There's no,
No,
Yeah.
he's saying that's what is allowed.
oh, I
in
see, that's
town.
what the
Yeah,
bylaws
right.
allow.
Right.
Yeah.
That's what we allow right now.
That's interesting.
Because
So-
right now, but I got Marguerite, I'll let you
So
talk.
the bylaw provision says that you can only have one owner per lot, and so a condominium concept is that it's one lot with multiple owners.
Right.
So, but however, that being said, Dayton has in the past had 2 of its 40Bs originally permitted as condominium associations, both of which ultimately converted into single-family home ownership. The one that was most like what you're talking about was Dayton Woods. It had that exclusive use area. We have language that we permitted at that time with that concept in mind. They were struggling at the time to sell that, and that's why we got the request. South Shore Housing Authority was the entity behind the development. We did get a request for a modification years ago to make that shift, to actually make those lots single-family units. That the exclusive use area idea just wasn't selling in Dayton.
I think, was that age restricted too in the beginning?
No, that was
Dayton was-
Stonegate, was age restricted, and that one also had exclusive use areas, I believe, I'd have to go back, but I think that one did too.
That was
And
all single family
We
though,
shifted that
with a couple of
to-
duplexes.
Yeah, we shifted that into, non-age restricted. That being said, I mean, the market could have changed, I know what the town administrator said. The only way that this concept could work in Dayton under its current zoning is through 40B. And, it might be worthwhile to explore, what might have led to the shift back with Dayton Woods, just to make sure from a marketing standpoint that you aren't gonna run into the same
Actually,
problems.
the Pines also was
That's the one
approved.
that was, I'm
Right.
sorry, you're right, it wasn't Stone.
Pines was
Right.
approved as this concept,
Mhm.
but that was 55 and older.
Yeah, and those are single family on the
Single-family
lot, so
concept,
that's, yeah, and there have been, I think, in some developments, marketability issues with a traditional single family with a yard.
Right.
It's actually a condo, but I think to Bishop's point,
This is
this is a
totally
different concept, this is this pocket neighborhood.
Village, yeah.
Yeah, this sort of village green,
Right.
pocket
Exactly.
neighborhood.
And it's
concept.
also, I mean, you're not as many units as what we were dealing with, we were doing an entire subdivision that was like
Correct.
that, so you weren't offering choice.
Mhm.
So, that may be pieces that come
The
into
m-
play here.
The market has shifted dramatically since the date that subdivision was approved at. Not only the market has shifted, the demographics have shifted as well.
Well,
Right
and this
now-
has become more familiar, I think.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, right now, we have 4 currently active subdivisions
Mhm.
of that product, and they're very, we can't keep up. We simply cannot keep up.
And the standard subdivisions, you're saying?
No, no.
Sorry,
Similar.
Okay, I'm sorry.
If I call them projects, people think, oh, project. So I don't wanna call them, developments, let's call them developments. That are of that type, the cottage style, like this, with a green in the middle. We have 3 in one town and 1 in a different town.
I think it does make a difference too, who the applicant is and who the developer was. Cause I know like on Titan Woods, that was the South Shore Housing Authority
Yeah.
along with the partner,
Uh-huh.
and there were issues there that, so I think with the track record, that makes a difference too, I think.
Well, I mean, the developer, the partner has stayed, and, I mean, they've stayed, they have
Yeah,
not, we
we
haven't
just
had a
we just sold a
turnover of
resale
people, which is unlike some other ones,
Right.
so.
Yeah.
But again, it was back at the time that this was happening, and the entire subdivision was arranged that way.
But,
And
right-
it wasn't in this cottage style arrangement
Right,
either, so.
Yeah, we're gonna show you pictures, and I will invite, if that idea has some traction with the board or with the town official, I'm happy to just take you over and show you what it looks like, real life. So that's one concept. Another one also is this one here, which has been, we've been building this now for a while. It's a nice U-shaped buildings with garages, and it has like a little courtyard here. And then, each building could be 12 or 14 units, and these are condos as well. Again, and that invites young people who, like the chairman was saying, he would like to stay in town, but this may offer an alternative for young people who wanna stay in town, but cannot afford to buy a single-family home. Very much less impact on school system, because very few, like you will see, 0.09, the ratio per unit, children, school-age
Yeah,
children.
I know you got a laugh about that stat, but
Yeah,
at
we-
the last
we
hearing,
got
but
it,
we're
yeah.
gonna follow up on that one.
I have it.
Yeah,
I have
we
it right
got some
here.
of the info.
One question
But,
on
yeah.
that picture there you're showing, how many units in that building?
12.
12, okay.
This 4, 4, and 4.
Okay.
The 14-unit building would be 4, 4, and 8.
Eight, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
It just
There's
kinda stretches.
a variety,
Basically-
there's a variety, I don't know how many, I forget how many, but there's a variety of unit types as well,
Yes,
they're not all the same.
That's what's unique.
Just some on the second
No,
floor.
I just wanna get an idea of
Right,
the
yeah.
density.
Sure.
Okay.
So, and that, again, we're gonna show you a video of real live subdivisions that we have, that we built. These are, again, very popular, very, very popular, because, again, they solve an issue for people.
Well, tell them how many units were built in Abington
We-
and how
we
many in
built-
Foxborough and,
We built 220 units in Abington of these buildings, and they were all, and actually, we went through a recession and they maintained their value after, even though everything else dropped. And then now we just finished 36
Foxborough.
36 units in Foxborough, sold in 1 year, sold out.
So these would be sold as units versus
Correct.
the condos where they have some space, right? Or do they have, in that concept there, the village concept, do they have
Yes.
exclusive use area?
Right, so
Yes.
each
Okay.
one has like a patio area.
Right.
Okay,
Yes,
very limited.
but those will be sold as units, you're right.
Those would
The
be-
only exclusive space they will have is their deck,
Okay.
their own
So
deck.
you can kinda see it in that picture, each of the houses has a deck.
You see here, they
Off
have
of
a
it.
deck here,
Yeah.
that's their only exclusive. use.
Over to the left, yeah, you can see
Okay.
the top floor, bottom floor.
Right.
Yeah, I get it,
Right.
okay.
Okay.
Yep.
And then beyond that, there is the single-family concept, which we all know. The nice thing about this whole newer proposal is it has less roadway impact, which I think one of the letters we received as comments on the original proposal is they want a little bit more open space and a little bit less roadway networks. This accomplishes that. And, again, we're gonna have a video that we're gonna show you of 3 separate now, the idea here is, some people may first buy here, then they may buy right here, and then when they have kids, they buy here. It's just to stay in the same area. And we have built this, and this in a separate, we're gonna show you 3 different subdivisions, just imagine combining them all at
Right,
once.
right.
For 1 second. So we're gonna turn the lights off.
Mhm.
Are we ready?
Alright, give me a sec.
There we go. Oops.
It's alright, I just need to do
That's because you knocked it down, Bishop.
Yeah, I know.
it. It's doing so well.
I got too excited.
Where's the popcorn?
That's in Norfolk.
Yep.
So
This is
40,
the
that was
village
40
side.
that was permitted in the 40B as well.
Yep.
This won awards, Fisher, right?
It did.
Yep. It's on Mass Housing's, annual report as well.
Now, this is in Foxborough.
So this whole thing stays private roads.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
This section is.
It's actually, is that the septic system in the middle there,
Yeah,
in the field, so it blends right in.
This would have.
and then there's a single family, this is
The
the
single
Stony Ridge.
This is Stony Ridge now?
Yes,
Okay,
this is live.
yep.
What was the average lot
You know-
size on yours? I can't remember.
And Stony,
Yeah,
What?
15,000?
15,000.
12 to 15.
What's
Pines are a little
interesting,
smaller, pines are probably,
Yeah.
what's interesting, all of these, you can't tell which ones are the affordable.
Right. And they all will get that white picket fence all around, it's very attractive.
That looks similar.
That's Stony Ridge.
How'd you ever make out the bench?
You should have taken the pictures when they had all the flowers blossoming.
Yeah,
Looks nice.
yeah, that's true. We do have that, we just took that like last week.
I figured.
Who flew the drone, you or, Owen?
No, we had a company do that. Actually, I'm having an animation done, but I couldn't have it done for this meeting. I will, hopefully if, you know, when you decide to go forward, I'll show it at the next hearing. Of this actual building, the actual subdivision, where we'll have an actual animation going here showing the same thing as this, but for this particular subdivision.
What size lots, I mean, cause clearly you've now, spaced out some of the lots.
Right.
So
They're,
what would they be about now?
what, 8 to 10?
I think that's what we have currently, 8 to 10.
Yeah,
So,
so similar to the pines.
similar to the Pines.
So that's where we figured we would go based on what we heard at the last hearing. Is that, I mean, based on what you heard, or based on what the peer review or town council or anybody, you know, that's interested, are we off on a lark here, are we going in the right direction? Again, based just on what we heard at the hearing.
So altogether, so how much is this proposing, how many people are we proposing to live in this entire?
121
Hundred
units.
and twenty-one
Units.
Yes.
between, and this is the breakdown, 53 single-family houses,
Mhm.
42 townhouses, condominium, and 26 cottages,
What's your total
121. I'm sorry?
affordable
It will be
units?
25%.
25.
Yeah, do you have a number on each of them? I mean, I can figure it out, I just didn't know if you had that
Well,
31 units.
total, but how are you breaking it out?
Just
Well-
about the same way, so.
Yeah.
Well,
it
no,
would be-
I think that we can work out, we've had another development where we had a mixed development, and they decided, for example, in Taunton, we had 150 units, and it was 120 single family and 30 condominiums. And the board wanted all of the affordables to be in one section, and not, so all the affordables were in the single family, and the,
Yeah. I
the
mean, that is something
condos
that
were
would-
more for 55
It's open for
and over.
dialogue, and it's
So we
open
could
for,
come up.
So you're proposing 25%?
yes,
Yeah.
plus
At this-
one.
At this point in time?
Yes.
Yeah, I think on that point, we would need local support
Mhm.
to do anything but 25, 25,
I agree.
25.
Yeah, that's what we
Yeah.
were planning
Right.
on right
Right.
there, 25, 25, 25.
And,
Do any,
Well,
do
that's
any
why
of
I'm
the
wondering,
units
'cause
count differently,
Yeah.
like apartments?
No, they're all for
They're all
sale.
for
It's all for
So
sale.
it would just be the
Okay.
affordable.
Like 53 single-family homes doesn't evenly divide into 4, so that's why I was trying to figure out where your
Right.
breakdown was.
Well, we didn't break it down really by section, but that's something we can work out, I'm sure.
You know, as Bishop mentioned, part of the feedback we got was not enough open space, too much disturbed area, they didn't like the roadway layout, smaller lots. Here we have larger lots, we're able to reduce the amount of roadway. We significantly increased the undisturbed area, the buffer to some of the homes that abut the site. So, I mean, from our perspective, going in this direction would be a win-win.
Plus the roads here would be privately maintained. This here,
No, I know we're far away from this, but going, just a few things that we talked
Sure.
about. Getting the bus off the street, we'd have to go through the schools, make sure they're gonna be able to do it. I did notice some of the roads that were in there were awfully narrow, fire apparatus and stuff like this, even though it's a private road, we still have to make sure that's all.
they're all 24-foot paved.
Yeah, but the way,
Well,
that one that I saw, he had cars running parallel with the building, and it was like a little jog in there. I'm not sure that it will happen, especially
Yeah.
around these, we
In
talked
this
about
vid-
bigger
in the video?
apparatus. What's that?
In the video?
Yeah,
Oh, the video,
I know, I'm just
People
stating
haven't
that these are
aren't
a few
parking
things that I
right.
know
Yeah.
are gonna come up,
Of
about
course,
the roads,
of
the
course,
widths,
of course, yeah.
fire
well,
apparatus, the height of this
Yep.
building, how tall it's gonna be, what kind of equipment we're gonna get around, topography of the land, those are the things they're gonna be
Sure.
asking us
Sure.
on that, all right? Back here, this is where your biggest buck is,
Right,
and, just that right there,
yeah.
that's, that,
No, we
you
know this is gonna be the problem, but,
And just throwing things out there that
I
we
know,
can talk to you
but,
guys about.
you know,
And obviously, we're far away from the drainages and the wetlands and all that stuff, but, so this.
Well, it's the
wetland-
same wetlands that
This
was.
topography right here is 100 foot, no touch limit, what we had on that. I know
no,
it
this
doesn't
is
have
the
to be.
actual wetland line.
That is the wetland line,
Right,
so
it's
you're
not
right
the
on
100
that.
feet.
And these are the Patullo's homes like that, so right behind them,
It'd be wetlands.
be the wetlands where we
Yep.
have all this triple E right now.
Right.
Okay. And this is gonna be
Wetlands.
staying the way it is, staying the
Yeah,
way it is,
yeah.
a little bit of woods in there.
Yeah.
What about the 6 units sitting out there by themselves?
Which
What about
Get
it?
right
6
here.
units, they're
By
kinda
the
like
street.
closest to
Actually,
the,
he's looking over here.
the
Oh,
neighbors
6
and
units.
everything.
I'm sorry?
the condo building up.
Yeah, yeah, what about it?
It's kinda an awkward place, I think.
Sorry,
One-
these ones?
Yeah, it's right next to the, closest to the
No.
neighbors. of
Oh,
all
that
of
one
them.
there you're talking about, or this building, the 6 unit building?
The 6 unit building, right
This one
there.
right
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, okay, sorry,
Yeah.
We're-
lots.
We're
I'm
open,
sorry.
we're open, no, I see,
Yeah,
I see
and
which one.
and I think there's some drainage issues, getting the water around there. I mean, I noted that in my initial letter on the,
Yeah, I mean,
so,
yeah, the landscape architect came up with this, right, Claire? So-
Yeah.
so that engineer-
I mean, this is,
all
right now,
comments.
is a concept plan.
I understand that.
We're willing to talk, to see, you know,
So that would, the concern would be the drainage there with the
And
6
also
units?
the impact on the neighbors.
Well, I mean, if you look at the existing, I think the existing proposal shows 4 house lots there that are right up against the neighbor. I mean, so I think this basically is being sacrificed now as buffer, so it would increase the buffer. The scale of the building, if you look at the scale of that proposed building, it's 2 stories plus a roof.
Yeah, it's 36 feet.
Yeah, but most of it's, I mean, it's, what's it at the mean height of the roof
I
line?
really
The problem
don't
we
know.
had with the topography of the land on the last development that came here, where they were gonna put it was gonna be back here. The topo dropped dramatically
Where does it drop?
back here, and it's not with this particular case, but it dropped dramatically in this area back here. Okay, so the problem we had was the fire department wanted to make sure they could get around with an apparatus around the building, and obviously with the topo dropping, even putting a ladder up was a concern.
well, these buildings
Are they gonna
all,
be sprinkled?
right,
Do we have the water pressure for that? Remember, there was a concern about that.
yeah,
Just
yeah,
stuff I
these
know
are
that's
very
gonna
good
come up.
questions,
There might be a
absolutely.
pump necessary, but.
Okay,
These are very good questions, but, you know, yeah, that need
I
to
mean,
be.
these are all things that, if this is where you wanna
And we
go,
also-
then we can proceed into
Right.
the other areas, see where the issues are, but there's been discussions with the water department.
and obviously the traffic study, the biggest concern, like I said, I lost a friend right here when we were kids, picked up his Matchbox car, got hit by a car. It's a tough corner, tough hill, I should say. People do move right along through there, and one of the concerns that I know I had was about the school bus. I do see something here possibly what you guys were thinking about, where a bus stop, just, okay?
Sure.
Making sure we're on the same page. And do we have anything for the kids, like activity areas, play areas, swing sets? I don't see any of that.
No, we
It's
don't,
on
let me
the
tell
side.
you why.
The one house is right up against it.
These 2 places
Yeah.
Further back this way, but it's
will
a
have
little closer.
very few kids, very few. And these are single-family lots like any other subdivision. There's, you know,
But on an average though, according to what you sent us, you're getting what, 0.3 children per place?
here,
here.
so.
Out there,
And
yeah.
these are
And there's 50, how many of those units?
53.
It's only three.
So that'd be 15 kids.
Only three to the corner now.
Yeah, it's one less.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
but they're on their own lots though.
Mhm.
And we do have here, community
saw
garden,
that.
it's not a playground.
Yeah, I
it's
know,
community
yeah,
garden.
yeah.
They just moved.
That becomes a
Yeah.
little-
But any comments like that, I mean, we can explore, like, I'm not opposed to, you know, doing something like maybe like here, there's woods here, we can do like here,
I'm not-
Trying to keep the kids away from this area,
you know what I mean?
right.
that's a big thing. Maybe we can sacrifice something here,
We could think about
see
that,
something
yeah,
in that area there, it's
Sure.
centrally located between these two and there,
Yeah.
I guess.
that's not a problem.
And like I say though, the other thing, I know you said 25 foot of the road, and again, it's all stuff gets hashed out with the fire department regardless, but, turnaround radiuses for fire apparatus to get through here.
Well, that's, the turnaround is around here, is here.
Right, but if there's a fire here, they're not gonna park here.
Right.
They're gonna come in here.
Right.
And they back up.
Well,
I mean, we'd have to put the-
But it's still,
There's only 4 units there, but.
I know when it was Tony, he was adamant about radiuses for turning, so.
Yeah, we put the turn radius on every
Yeah.
every
Yeah.
turn in there by the time you get down to details.
Sure.
Well, and our peer engineer is gonna review that.
Right, exactly.
So,
No, that's,
Make
but
sure
that's a,
that gets
yeah,
done.
that's another good
right,
concern.
I mean, that's a big reason I think that you're sitting here is to hear some of those thoughts, Greg, too, so.
Another concern I
Copy
heard at the last hearing, I think it came from you, was about long-term maintenance, and and that kind of dovetails with the comment you made at the outset about one owner per lot. These would be condos, whether it's condos or a homeowners association, there's the ability for the managing entity to lien the unit if any particular owner is not keeping up with its maintenance
Right.
obligation. So I think the example you gave was, there are some houses in Dayton where maybe it's a function of the fact that it was one owner per lot. They subdivided the building, and the owner on one side was responsible for the roof, the paint, the door.
Similar to something like that,
And
now
on
that'd be
the
an
other side.
association, so this person on this one over here needs a roof, that one
Yeah.
never does it, this one gets fixed.
Right.
That's the situation we've had in town.
It's probably because of that bylaw, yeah, that says one owner per lot, and, which is an interesting one, and I've encountered, similar instances, but I don't remember seeing that
Well,
type of
plus,
bylaw.
there's a
'cause I
condo
think-
budget that we put forward, and that budget talks
Actually,
about
a
reserve.
homeowner cannot,
Right.
even if they wanted to. If this roof is gone bad, they cannot fix it. They have to have the association.
Association does, and
They
they have a
don't
budget.
own the roof.
Right.
The roof is owned by the association.
And the budget takes into account capital
Reserve
reserves for
replacement, all of
replacement.
those, all of those
They
things.
can't even put up a satellite dish if it's
Yeah,
going
they
to
own
affect
within
the
the
architectural,
walls.
yeah.
It's a
That's
lot, I mean,
right.
The
Walls,
paint
they
in.
call it walls in.
Yes.
out of college, I was in an association which was, 3 homeowners, they drafted up a little thing. It's very different than that, it's like a 96-page document
Well,
filled
the
with.
reason why that bylaw was put in there, because the town of Dayton at the time didn't want something like this.
Yep.
In the town,
Yep.
and that's how it got written, that's why the bylaw
Yeah.
got written.
And now over time,
I did some more,
Well,
demographics
yeah.
change.
and I was just over there, I was just out of a job down on Plymouth on Cherry Street, right behind a hotel we just built, and they're building all that type of home, it really looks nice. You know,
And Cherry Street, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They just built
Plymouth.
Fairview Inn
Yeah.
Hotel there, just got done with that one, and that's right behind it now, So the traffic study part, you're the guy who's gonna do it for the town of Dayton now?
Yeah, we already have a copy of it.
Okay.
We kinda went through it, and basically we will, comment on the process, how it was done. If it
Okay.
does comply with current standards and, current practices, and we will make some suggestions per se.
Sure.
So you're gonna be presenting that has not yet been presented.
If you don't
No.
mind, if you don't mind giving me your card,
Yes,
I will
okay.
forward it to our expert. And then is that okay for them to communicate?
Yeah, I'd rather they.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, Bill,
So he'll
Bill
communicate with
Scully,
you,
that was
Bill Scully.
Yeah,
Bill
Bill,
Scully.
yeah.
Yeah, you know
Yeah.
Bill?
Oh, yeah, very well.
Okay, great.
But I mean, just to clarify, because this was a little bit of my misunderstanding, and I spoke to Chris about it, a few weeks ago. My takeaway from the meeting had been that you were looking to have maybe some of the work done by our peer review, but you just want him to comment on what is missing.
That-
And I
No, I
brought to
mean-
his attention what was said,
Oh,
Greg, at the meeting
we
about
actually don't,
certain things.
I mean, we don't request any of that. If you feel comfortable with our study, you know, and he says, yeah, it's okay,
Right,
good.
but there are things potentially that we
Right.
talked about, I mean, I think, I'm not even sure, I think your own traffic guy said he didn't really factor in that light at, what is it, 138 and,
So just to recap, let's,
Yeah, let's
Well,
recap.
once you
yeah,
back
let's
up,
recap this, and I think you're helpful, because you identified what we, and
What was
and
that,
the-
138 and what?
Center Street.
the
Let's
hearing,
back up with
the
the
last
comments
hearing's
and
on
how it's-
video, you can get it on YouTube.
Okay.
And Bill's presentation lasts about 10, 15 minutes, and then there were comments from the board and from members of the audience about specific conditions on this stretch of roadway. So can you fill them in, just so that, the idea was that you would look at the report and determine whether or not it addressed those specific conditions that people had at least anecdotal experience about, in some cases real experience obviously here, that you're referencing. And then, you know, maybe advise the board on whether or not those issues were taken into account, whether it's satisfactory.
Sure.
And if you feel as though it wasn't, then that would go back to Bill. But if
Right.
you feel as though it was addressed,
Right.
then you can explain to the board how it was addressed, whether it was satisfied, and then the board can make a determination from there. So that being said, what would
Since
the,
1978, right, there's been 3 fatalities on that hill cresting over towards, I don't know the name of that road there. That means there.
Country Hill.
Country Hill. As soon as that comes right out with this entrances that he's proposing, there's a crest that goes down. There's been 3 fatalities right there, head-on collisions, people getting hit by cars, and stuff like that, since 1978 that I know of. Now, when you get down here to Center Street, some of the concerns that the people had is there's a stoplight now.
Right.
Right, that stoplight also goes over to Route 24, which now they just remodeled the bridge and large trucks are going to the auto auction. So that's always a backed up spot in that area. How much backup would you occur from the times of when the people would go to work, come out of work, how far the traffic study would go back? That was another concern that someone else had in that meeting that I remember. And we also have a playground behind, actually right behind here, okay? There is no walkway, no light, no nothing for them to cross if they were to come over to the playground. That's why I was trying to talk to them about possibly trying to put something into their own entity over here, so kind of defer a little bit for them trying to travel over and cross the road. It is a very dangerous road, Somerset Ave. Traffic study they did an average of speeds and stuff. I don't wanna incriminate myself, but that speed was very low going down this road in the morning. So I just think that's something that we really need to look into.
So all these things that you spoke about, definitely, they would be included part of the study.
Right.
The hill itself is what we
Well,
call.
they were
site
basing stuff on like, was it state or nationwide study, is how the.
Well, it's Astral Manual, based on the trip generation.
Okay, and that
It's
was some
based-
of the
that's what-
things that the people of the town were like,
Right.
that doesn't mean nothing to us.
Well,
I get how we come up with the study, I do. As
Yeah.
a person in the board, I understand, but I'm just trying to say these are the
public.
They don't believe
public
it,
is a little
sure.
A
concerned.
layperson may
They
not.
need to understand where we're coming from on that, and that's something that I'm
Right.
hoping, we have 2 people there, we can
Yeah,
put
cause when
them
someone says there's gonna be 19 cars, the audience goes, you're nuts, there's,
I know.
you know, it's gonna be 150 cars, you know, or.
You can't, it's very hard to tell,
Yep.
you know? So, but I just wanted, those are the few things on the traffic study that I remember that the, people, and my concern was the children, where the bus is gonna pick them up, which I think we can hash out through this.
Yeah.
But at the same note, that was something that, to have a bus stop on that road and have children cross the street and come across, it's gonna be very dangerous.
So we will do the first round of review of the report itself, and we'll prepare our memorandum in agreement with the process. I mean, we'll highlight everything that they have done consistent with the standards. And if there are anything that we question, we just indicate that and we'll state it. And that memo can go back to the traffic engineer.
Yes.
And then if the traffic engineer has a problem with it,
Okay.
will come back to us stating that, you know, this is.
But whatever you send, obviously, to their traffic engineer, also gonna send to our board, so our board can look at it too with the concern
Sure.
of what you
It's
might
gonna
have,
come
even
through
though.
you.
Yeah, so just wanna make sure that comes
Right.
to us, cause that's the first thing, okay, guys, man, how'd that go?
Right.
Oh, here's what we got, and we have it,
Sure.
you
Yep.
know?
And
So what-
I
yeah.
think the other point that I had spoken to him about was that, you know, some of this, sort of, neighborhood knowledge of the site that might be a little bit contrary to the specific, you know, engineering standards, because Country Hill Estates Drive might be actually a little bit further away than where the typical site distance measurements go, but the reality is that hill just is an awkward,
Yeah.
it's an awkward hill, and just the way that the light and the site and how it's, the pitch of the hill and whatever else, that we want you to go a little bit beyond that based on some of the comments made, because that's gonna help the board feel comfortable, and then from there, be able to have them at least have some ability to communicate with the abutters about it.
I don't know if Bill actually did in his report, but we could certainly show what the site distance minimum
I think we
is.
did bring
He did,
something out like
And
that,
then, and then how much we actually have.
Correct. But like I
Which I
said,
think
the kid that I used to go to school with lived here, okay, we used to ice skate back here, right here, and he was right there, and I just left him 2 hours prior, and that's where it was. So, I mean, I know this little area is dangerous, and I just hate to put all these kids, well, 19 kids you're saying, whatever, but however many
No,
children
that-
shall move into this
absolutely.
development, into any danger on that
Or
road, I
adults,
know it,
yeah.
so.
So it seems like on the site distance issue, I did walk the site myself, and
Okay.
then, where the driveways are, there's a lot of growth, you know, like the trees coming right to the street.
Right.
So technically, if you're gonna have some clearing, you may end up on other properties as well, so there has to be a lot of coordination with other
Now,
properties.
that would be the state, right, would have to clear the side of the road on that particular area, because the state owns, what, 5 feet of the road?
They won't do it, the state will not do it for the developer, the
Right.
developer probably has
Well,
to.
we get, yeah, we coordinate.
To do that.
Yeah.
I mean, they will
We just
obtain
coordinate,
some
yeah.
sort of access permit from the state to allow them to have access on the state highway, if this stretch is a state highway. Even designing those entry and exit points has to be consistent again with the, allowing, you know, like say, that if a bus gonna come in and enter, allowing it to stay away from the traffic behind it. And the study does indicate the speeds,
Right,
was
'cause
measured during the.
There's gonna be a lot of units here, and okay, so if there's, we'll say 20 cars for 19 children, we're gonna just use that number as a baseline. So all these parents gonna, if we didn't have these bus stops, gonna be corrugating right here,
Right.
and it's just gonna
No,
make
we'll
them.
have a bus.
I know, but I'm saying if
We
we
still-
didn't,
Sure.
See what we did at Stony Ridge,
of course, yeah,
something like that.
exactly. Yep, but that was built right here, again, the corrugating to the highway, I would like to see it get off the highway.
Sure.
So children don't come back onto the highway. That's something that, it's just
Yeah,
a
yeah.
dangerous road,
Sure.
it really is.
And just a final thing on the roadway, you know, definitely it's much cleaner, this concept than the other concept. And it seems like a one roadway, the
Right.
circuit around. Personally, I would suggest having some linkage at this area, either from alongside where the easement for the.
I'm sorry, a
power line.
link where?
He's saying make a loop cutting
loop.
through
Somewhere
behind these
along-
12-unit buildings.
I see.
And, or this short area as well, at least, because if anything happened and you have to use one or the other, you still have that access, and you don't have to force everybody to go around.
One
all
in
the
and
way.
one out.
Oh, you want that as emergency access or
No,
normal
it can be
access?
a regular access, the 2-lane allows people to, if they wanna access from there, even to come to these small.
So that's one of those balancing
We can play.
Oh, there are also.
considerations, I mean, because
Right.
you're adding impervious area,
Right.
you're, you know, taking out what would otherwise be open space, so,
But
I mean, is that like of critical concern to you, do you think, or would that be, you know, it'd be nice to have, it's just cause I think,
it's not, no, it's not really nice to have, it's really from a safety consideration for anything that happened, and you need to use it. In addition, you're gonna provide probably facilities for people to walk, you know, if they wanna walk, and allows them to make the loop around instead of going right through the area and coming back.
Let me ask you a question, from a safety point of view, does it make sense to have this road over here and just have this as a dead end? This gives you 2
Well,
means
you
of egress.
can't go through there,
Yeah,
there's a
No.
vernal pool right there.
Right.
Oh, right here?
No,
Okay,
no, what-
right here?
Yeah, right there.
What I could see is theoretically putting a walking path through here to allow for, you know, along this line. We can take a look at that, you know, to allow people to kind of walk the loop and,
I mean, that's one aspect, yeah, if you're gonna provide sidewalks and
Yeah,
people to walk,
yeah,
You could put a grass pave right through here
exactly,
with a walking trail
something like that.
right here.
Yep.
And then they can come in, if they have to, they can come in and go like that.
Right, then if people are trying to get to the community garden, they're not cutting through, yeah.
How big is this area, right?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
even if
that's
come from here and you wanna get
Oh,
to this
that's what
side.
he's talking.
Exactly,
you can
if you're
actually
walking,
use it
okay.
going all the
Make
way
it a
around.
walking
No,
path,
alright,
that grass
this is-
paved on the side so the fire truck can drive over it.
Right.
Yeah, if it had to be, yeah.
Just a suggestion.
There was a bit of a grade change across here though.
Okay.
Well, yeah, we'll look at it,
But
yeah.
that's,
Who's taking, are you taking keeping
Notes?
track of all these notes? Yeah.
I mean, I am, but those are my notes.
Chris, are you keeping track?
I have them, I always pick up the major stuff, I got the important ones.
You can watch YouTube.
That's exactly what we were
Right,
talking
so
about.
you have to watch YouTube.
You press a button, it transcribes
That's what I
it.
do.
It automatically
They can stop
transcribes it,
like
you can search the words, that's great.
That's incredible.
On what,
Yeah.
YouTube?
YouTube, you press it.
It is
uh,
something.
That's good to know.
it
Thank
transcribe.
you for letting me know that.
and then the words right
Future.
I know he said this.
Yeah, no, it's true, you can find it.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's a step up.
That's not a bad feature.
I never forget the first thing I went to, they went in both parties, they had someone stenographer taking the notes, but both parties had computer links to her computer and they could see what she was typing.
Wow, that's a lot of mistrustful situations.
Well, that
Once
was
they've
on
gotten
the-
that far, they're.
That was on the DPU on the wind project, the initial wind project.
Have you, I mean, I pulled this document out, have you compared what you did to this document at all? 'Cause this was yours, right?
Yep.
Okay. Have you compared
This?
this at all to, yeah?
We
what
use
you
the
laid out
wetland
on this?
lines, we,
'Cause that's what this is, I
Yeah.
it's
think,
the,
right?
That was used
You
to
can see,
generate.
that's why I was
Standard.
pulling this out, I was just saying, yeah, that's why, this is why that's shaped like that.
Right,
See the-
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
All
I
this
saw
smoke
that,
and
but I was
everything.
just, it was this
But
area
it
that I was
does.
like,
I mean,
this doesn't seem to line up as I'm looking at it, but it seems like there
It might be different scale, but it does line up.
Well, okay, that's
Let me
what that's where I was particularly,
So, another
it could be a
it-
different scale, I haven't done all of
Another
that.
violation right here
No, I
is
think
your
it's
wetland setbacks from these,
yeah, see, there's
It's not
one,
wetlands,
there's
it's
one there, yep.
that's actual
That's that one.
wetland.
That's,
Right.
it's actually on the plan, see, there's the little, you can see the little
I know, I do,
outline of
I
it.
was just then, what's this stuff in?
So
we have one
for these guys. Right.
Yep, oh, those, these two right here, right,
Yeah.
Okay,
right, the drainage system wraps around
It's
it.
not gonna be,
I know, I was trying to see if anybody would.
that's closer up. Yeah,
Well,
that I saw.
That's not my job, but I was just looking
we
around.
can,
and
I mean,
that's gonna be fine.
everything's open for discussion, if you.
But obviously, all of that's gonna be refined when we take a
No,
really
exactly, I'm
much
sure,
hard
I just
crack
wanna
at
make
it
sure you
all.
had at least done some
Yeah.
preliminary
Yeah, it looked
analysis
like it.
on that.
That's
No,
your
and-
shadow right there.
The nice thing is,
I
it
know
it
that.
ended up,
But
you know, coming with an, I mean, the same
Like, you
thing,
wanna consider
discussion about how much
something
roadway there is
It's
over
weird
here and
Alright.
loops and access, I mean, this,
So,
you know, you kinda have sections that kinda define themselves
You know
very
what the
nicely.
problem with this? You do something here, this guy's.
That's going on.
Oh, I want something.
Well, I'm talking that whole road, and
Well-
that's something, you know how it's gonna be.
What are we talking about? No, I'm sorry.
Well,
We're
that,
talking
that's
about
its
Single
own,
family
yeah.
along
A
Country.
single family section along Country Hill Drive. Now, there's also something about a water easement possibly coming off Country Hill Drive into the back of this by the water department's discussion. You remember that meeting?
I do remember that.
Yeah, so typically the water department wants to loop it, it's just a matter of, you know, if somebody there would.
There is no way anybody here is gonna give us an easement to loop it. If the water department secures an easement, we're happy to hook it up to.
Then we can tie it in.
Yeah, the ironic thing is, it would improve their quality, improve their pressure,
Right.
Everyone's.
Right,
Exactly.
but they'd rather have bad pressure and not,
Not
and
help.
not allow the project,
That's a-
which is
But
is
that's
a
the thing,
difficult
I mean-
It's not an
situation.
impingement on their property, an easement on their property.
Right, yeah,
Well,
no, it-
You know, there's probably plenty of room if they wanted to do it, I mean, you could squeeze it down
yeah, you
a
can
lot.
see it right there at the end of
We
the
are
cul-de-sac.
delighted to help whenever we can.
Yeah, I just remember when the sewer guy came in, he was talking, I forget his name, but he came in, he was talking in regards to the sewer, the pump station down
Right.
the road is gonna be able to handle it, we might have to put something in here. Also, the water pressure was a concern, how many
Yes.
gallons of water we were gonna be
Correct.
utilizing.
Actually, the water department mentioned this concept.
They prefer it.
And all of that, okay, now, we approached the water department and the sewer department, and they are having their experts analyze all of that, but before they analyze something, we need to tell them what to analyze, you
We
know?
need a concept.
Right.
Did you look at this, Greg? I pulled out what their current plan is, just to kind of take a quick comparison of the
to what they had
impact,
originally, yes.
cause I think the
Also,
idea
I
here
think
is,
it's in your book too,
is finding out if you think it's
Oh, there's the old one.
worthwhile for them to
It's,
present
no,
the
this
new
is the new-
concept.
this is this. I was just given for scale there.
So you're kind of basically keeping the same road layout for the most part, except for right here.
Well, we're using the same space, right,
So
but,
this is where the traffic study gentleman was talking about, that road there.
well, he was talking about adding another loop.
And down here, but
Yeah.
this is definitely much shorter.
Just the
than
linkage,
here.
yeah.
Right.
That's pretty much that. And obviously, we lost this.
Thing is, the idea behind the loop, even if some breakage happens anywhere, there's always another.
Of course.
There's second exits everywhere.
Mhm.
So even if there's an accident at the very, very front of the property in one of the entrances, you can always get out. Fire access will always be there.
It looks like there's a little bit of, less of an impact up at the front,
Yes, that's
um,
definitely.
and then it's probably pretty similar where the cottages are, in terms of the number of units that will be kind of, their backyard will be, or their back of their unit will be looking at the back of the homes there down in the cottage area.
And each of
Those
these
house styles
exclusive
would not
use
be there.
areas for these houses are on the sides of the units,
Cause
like in
it won't
between
fit, right.
condos.
What he was talking about, he was looking.
So like the area that people will be like active, interacting
family fitting over
are
here.
in between the
This is a
houses,
different
so as
unit
opposed to
type.
like a single family home where you're gonna be using your back deck, you know, you're gonna use that kind of central area.
And I think there were some models
The
that
size
also have
between.
master bedroom downstairs,
Oh, yeah.
which is age directed.
So none of these are gonna be designed for like handicap ADA, anything like that?
We can.
We always do them per
If someone
custom,
asks.
exactly,
It's
we're
optional.
pretty good about doing that, we've done probably 3 or 4 of them in the past.
In
Two
that
back
style,
here,
in
too.
that style unit. we've done.
Also with the affordables, I mean, what we have to do is that we have to make reasonable, accommodations for that particular buyer's disability.
Right.
So we've done that in Rockland, we've done it in a few places.
Yeah, you get the hearing ones, you know, lights and things.
Yep.
And, yeah. It's much less.
Are you proposing any type of a buffer up here? I see some of the, here, there's a tree buffer line down in the cottage area.
Any buffer where?
On the north side, on
The
Old Country
single-family
Road.
units?
Up here.
See, in the cottage areas where it's abutting up to
Yeah,
we
big
can.
lots,
Right here.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah, we
we've
typically
actually
don't
moved,
clear the-
we've moved that roadway.
Down,
Yeah, the roadway's moved away, the lots are deeper.
correct.
Yeah.
So we
you
can do
yeah,
that.
Probably
potentially showing
show
some type of a
With
buffer
help,
would
yeah.
help
Yeah, I mean, obviously,
address-
just a concept plan, but
I mean,
No,
there's
I
definitely more
agree.
room.
I mean, cause I see it
It's a
here,
good-
so at least you can,
Or-
Right.
It's a good idea, Margaret,
Jumped
yeah,
around,
we'll do
done
that.
the last time
Yeah,
we
let's
went
typically
there,
you don't clear the
the other
entire lot.
developer that was proposing it was
No,
gonna do
we,
apples.
especially there, usually you leave the line.
Well, we've done a combination of
well, if that's
plantings
the
and
case, then
fencing
you may
and,
even wanna show
along
the
the way.
no cut,
Right,
no cut
we'll
line
just
as
show it
well.
on there.
I mean, if you're gonna present this as a proposal, if you truly are already committed to a no cut line there,
well, I think better than a no cut line is putting up some kind of, plants, you know, arborvitae's or some fencing rather than a no.
well, I'm just suggesting on the,
Yeah,
there
we'll-
may
we'll
be
mark
some of that,
something,
but I'm
we'll mark
suggesting
something.
is you actually visually show it to people. If you have a no cut line that you're already thinking you're committed to, and you can show it now, I think that's gonna go a long way to
Yeah, see the-
having people have a
back
sense
there.
of what this
Yeah.
is. If
We
you're
did
not
that,
ready to do that,
we did that at
Yeah.
Stony
we
Ridge.
did that at Stony Ridge.
And,
That helped.
and it, yeah, I'm not sure it really worked.
Well,
Cause the
it
neighbors were
helped.
saying, I still can see it.
Well, it still helped
I
to-
mean, it came out in the end, it came out
I
fine.
would like,
But-
if someone can help us get a consensus what the neighbors want.
From, like I said, our last point of view, they said they didn't want fencing, they wanted greens. I
Yeah.
remember that.
Yeah,
The topography is, the road that was presented before was similar to what you were doing here.
yeah.
That was gonna be right against that
I see.
property.
Right, right.
And they didn't want, they wanted
Yeah,
to see
well,
how
th-
tall
that-
it was.
Sure.
you know.
Well, those houses are gonna be similar in height as to their houses. If, you know, I have failed in my attempts to communicate with these people, with the abutters. If somebody can, relay to us what it is they would,
Well, this
Collectively
concept's
would
much
like,
more
yeah.
different than the last one.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure that the board's gonna be able to determine that either,
Yeah.
but if you look at what you've done here, you've shown each of these homes has an area of buffer, but some of
Yeah,
them
buffer.
have, sheds or other things kind of towards the rear. What is gonna be the availability of something like that here? If you can present what you think it could look like,
Yeah, sure.
where,
That makes sense.
where a clearing area would be, particularly on these lots of 19 through 7. Where is the clearable area, where is the buildable shed area that you're envisioning
Okay.
here?
fair
I
enough.
think that may be helpful, because
Sure.
it's gonna allow people to take a look at their own home, compare it to how much more distance they have to the new house, and maybe
Sure.
think about it that way.
are you planning on
I mean,
putting up a
what they're
fence?
going to want is not having houses there, so.
Yeah.
You're not doing that, so to the extent you can show a buffer area, I think that will be.
What about a buffer here between six to 1? If
Um,
it's feasible,
I can do a fence there, that's not a problem.
Four greens, yeah.
yeah, cause that's Cummins' house.
But you've only
I
got
mean, it's
one.
really
You
only
got
one and two.
abutter.
We have all this natural buffer back here,
Yeah.
1 and 2, and,
Right.
we could.
Do you have other versions of the ones with the aerial photo?
I think that. There's a larger one, Peter.
Yeah, so let's just put that down as a note, that we're gonna look at the no-touch zones. But to that point, yeah, if anybody hears anything from the abutters about ways that we can help, like you've said, fence versus no fence,
That
that's
was
helpful.
last
You can help, I leave
Yeah.
town.
That was last time. That, what they're gonna want this time is totally different, cause that building we were conceptually gonna build was
So when they-
3-story,
Apartments.
big apartments like
Right,
this.
so when they had the apartments were close to the property line?
No, the
They
apartments
were
were,
right in this area here,
oh, really?
yeah. Just on the other side of the high tension line.
Yeah.
It was different, this is.
So this is less intrusive.
Yeah, if you
From
look
their
at
point of view.
this to this, it's definitely less.
That too, yeah.
Well, from the apartments to that to this is even more.
Yeah,
The only
most
thing
of them
that's-
cut all the way back to the property lines, it looks like.
Well, that's
Just on, right, just on that schematic.
And how many
Yeah.
homes again?
We have
53.
one in Stony Ridge who cut past the property line.
Here.
You know,
Yeah.
that's, but I'm saying, but they want, you
Talking
wanna
about the
put,
existing
yeah,
houses on
Yeah.
Country Hill or clear to the property line?
I mean, look at, we have,
So
obviously we
there's
have yards
potential
back there,
94
and some
units.
scattered trees.
And then all this, and then again, on top of it, right? So how many units
People
total?
never
One-
think
one,
that
two,
the
one.
property behind it is gonna be developed.
And you took basing it on 25% affordables?
Yes.
Correct. Be 31 units affordable.
Are you gonna do the same thing that you did on the last one with the bond, with the, each unit is gonna use a piece of property as a bond, or are you gonna
Right.
get a bond?
No, probably the same thing.
Are you gonna do it in phases?
Yes.
What would be phase 1?
Well, I haven't gotten that advanced enough.
I'm just thinking out of the box. So we're gonna do it in phases though, right?
Yes.
Now, when you say phases, it's not gonna be one house here, a single one here, and a
No,
single
well,
one here, it's
well,
gonna be
see,
phases.
the advantage of this style versus all singles is now you are addressing 3 different markets.
Mhm.
Which is very advantageous to me as a developer, because now, I can do all here and offer this, and the 3 different products, so you have 3 different segments of the market. So it will, to finish the construction completion for the whole project is much shorter than like at Stony Ridge. Stony Ridge like 5 years.
Well, you'd pretty much have a similar, you have fewer houses
Yeah.
of single-family
The-
homes, but
you can figure on about at least 15 units per year from each product,
right.
rather than 15 units from.
So you're gonna try to pull 45 permits a year?
Yeah.
Right.
So 3 to 4 years, then the whole project is done.
That's a baseline, right?
I think, to Bishop's point, you probably have a shorter overall build-out period,
Right.
less impact
With
on.
3 to 5, yeah.
And I do
think
agree
that's-
with you,
yeah.
but I know I'm gonna be asked this, and I just wanna
But
make
it's
sure
good to
that-
see a project get done, you know?
Tell me
Get
about
and
it.
get done.
Yeah, don't see that
Well.
often. Yeah.
We're almost through number 2. Almost through number 2.
And, so these are the cottages,
Mhm.
okay, and that's the homes, and that's that, and
Right.
The units.
And the beauty of this is, I mean, Paul mentioned it, these things look like postcards that are computer
Exactly,
generated,
yeah.
but,
Yeah.
if you're traveling, I think we've given examples of, or we've given the addresses where they are, you can go look at the product,
That's
you
the
can
actual,
see
that's
the
the actual
finished
place, yeah.
proposal. And we're going to give a presentation of how it would look with computer generated in this layout.
This-
And we'll also present, to the audience as well, the video that we just showed, but it's real, I mean,
Yeah.
And these units at Boyd's Crossing, I mean, the prices were ending up, higher than what was originally anticipated. The demand is unbelievable for that type of unit. And it's,
I truly believe, and I
I'd like to see this versus that, but that's my opinion.
versus this,
Mm.
yeah, I truly believe this is gonna it's gonna help Dayton a great deal, I really believe that. I know it sounds
What do you
like
think
some.
when you're gonna give, so none of this is rentals, this is all
All-
selling
yeah.
purposes.
all for sale.
The only thing I see with this isn't as quite as much of this village green as you would have liked over here, because of the topography.
Right.
A lot of these are not located on the green, unfortunately, but it hopefully will carry through.
I'm sorry, what do you mean, Keith?
No, because the green isn't in the center of the, like the road's not running along the outside,
I see.
right? But it's still,
I
because
see,
it's its
I
own
see.
cul-de-sac, that's,
Yeah.
the idea is kind of
Yeah.
still the,
Yeah,
Plus you wanna have it.
you're gonna have to make
Also a
that
double
detention
barrel.
basin look very pretty.
the detention, oh, the drain, this over here?
Yeah.
Yeah,
make
but
that
look,
look
it's not in the
nice.
middle of the site, right?
I
It's
know,
just
but
off,
it's
yeah.
right there, I mean,
Yeah, oh,
you're
yeah.
gonna have to make it like an aesthetic feature.
Right.
Right.
Maybe even
right.
leave some boulders in it or something like that,
Boyd's-
something to
Boyd-
dress it up.
Boyd's
know?
Crossing in Norfolk had a challenge in the beginning, all right, where they had the road going in and you had ponds and wetlands and so
Yes.
forth, and they brought a bunch of goats in there and it was really,
Did some
really
goat
nice,
scaping, yeah.
Well, we get goats in Dayton.
We don't have
But
to
I'm saying-
import the goats?
But the Conservation Commission at one point in time was concerned about the ponds and so forth, and, they're really happy the way it came out.
Yeah.
All right, so, anything else we need to talk about?
I think we got some good feedback. I'm still, the lingering question is the initial comment, because there seems to be some lingering concern there about the town
Concept of condos.
has an aversion to condos, but I feel like we can overcome that
Yeah,
once we talk through it.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly the law allows for it, so that's not a concern as far as
I
doing
think
it
it's
for
the
40B.
40B,
It's just a
right.
question of, is there some underlying aversion or
I think
dislike?
when you
Condos
say,
isn't it?
I think when you present the quality of the condo that you're developing, this is not like, apartments, glorified
Right,
apartments or
right.
anything, this is high quality condos, and they're gonna look nice, and people will wanna live there.
And I can demonstrate that, I mean, today, live.
Yeah.
It's kind of, I guess, a little bit of a question to you, Greg. I mean, do you think it's worthwhile to make this presentation of this concept?
And if you're asking my opinion,
Yeah, your own.
this
personal-
is more likable to, I believe, the townspeople as well as our board.
Okay.
Because it's got the multiple aspects of what we've discussed, all three. There'll be a few discussion things about the affordables, how we're gonna put them, what we're gonna do, that's something down the road. But as a concept to bring to the board, I don't think it's as bad as the original. This one, was just like,
It's not that bad.
I wanted to throw up.
Oh, it's awful.
No, but
This is,
It's my legacy.
You want us to come in with the best first? Is that-
No, and we're not saying to Greg that this is, like, he's held to this, like, he's just basing this on his knowledge of the
Oh,
town
yeah.
and his own
Yeah.
This
personal.
is the
Yeah.
sense of it,
informal,
but, you
informal
know,
discussion.
That's kind of what you guys were, that's the best you're gonna get out of this, you know that, so,
Right,
I mean, I think that's what you wanted to be able to hear, because
Yeah.
you'll move forward
yeah,
With an idea.
yep,
on this idea and not on the other idea, and, you know,
Yeah.
we're still gonna do all the other detailed review of it.
Yeah.
There was a question that the town administrator raised about whether or not this would be necessitate 3 separate approvals from Mass Housing. Because it's 3 separate developments, and the answer is no, it would
No,
not.
I hear that as well, but it was hard for me to answer that until I saw what you
Sure.
were proposing.
Yeah,
I
sure.
mean, you're still proposing it on one
One
piece of
parcel,
land,
right.
one parcel, it's all within all of that, so, and that was the piece that I was waiting to see, I was waiting to see this to be able to answer that.
Sure.
I anticipated the answer would be no, but
Mhm.
couldn't say for sure.
As you know, we still
Let
have to
me
go
ask
through the
this
final.
question.
Yeah.
What if the people over here really like these over here and say, we like these over here?
We'll listen
have
to
some-
anybody. This is,
Yeah.
but I don't, I mean, you're gonna have, the problem is these people, or no people speak with one voice. You know, you're
Yeah.
gonna have 3 people wanting this, 2 people wanting that, which
Yeah.
is normal.
Mm-hmm.
So I really, what I would like to do is, I want directions from the board, because I don't wanna go on a wild goat chase, you know, I want, you know,
Yeah.
keep
Well,
changing
I don't
plans.
think it's the
I mean,
this-
board's responsibility to tell you what.
yeah,
to
so I
build.
think Bisher, I mean, we've,
This is what we're saying, this cute
Yeah.
little plan,
Yeah.
as you see it,
Mhm.
this cute little thing cost me $7,000, all right? Just the concept plan, $7,000 bucks. So I mean, I can only afford so many $7,000 bucks before I save.
No, I'm just saying.
How
I mean,
many?
I was just thinking that, you know, what if they maybe like that one so much that they want it, you know, they'd be
Yeah.
more placated
If they can,
by-
yeah.
well,
Right now-
I think, you know, part of the compromise is that, in order to offer this type of arrangement, we had to vary the typology. So this wouldn't work if it was all village green, all apartment, or all
Correct.
single family. So
Right.
it was the mix that
Yeah.
the town asked for.
And,
This is the
marketing.
developer's proposal, and
Yeah.
now,
right,
you know, we,
And-
I think got enough direction to say we can
exactly,
keep.
and
putting
I'm,
detail
you
on
know,
it.
I'm also bracing myself for ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I don't like this 6-unit building, so toss that out. and do
Yeah, I
something
got
else.
that
You
one.
know, you know, I don't like this, blah, blah.
I'm trying to be a little bit of
No,
a
I know,
devil's advocate.
believe me,
Yep.
believe me,
Okay.
I respect that, but what I'm saying is, I have to also keep calculating that loss, you know.
And
What about the-
potentially you may get more feedback once you get down
Sure.
to this point,
Of course,
which may
I
be
expect
helpful,
that.
you know, I know you've reached out to the neighborhood, I understand that you do that, and I know that you're always willing to talk to
Yeah.
people, but depending on the abutters comments that come out of the next public hearing, you might be thinking about doing one more neighborhood outreach offer.
Sure.
Before you really get into the final revision
And
of the
based on
details.
your comments, now, I saw some ideas here, you know, like to leave a buffer in the back.
Yeah,
It's very doable, very doable. And by virtue of, here, let me just explain here. You see this, these lots are pretty deep.
right,
So what we can do is move that road a little this way,
yeah.
you know, so to give those lots some depth and give some buffer. See, this is the kind of interaction that's very needed, so we can see how we can help
Yep.
minimize the impact
But
on
that's
the
more of a neighborhood concern than a board concern.
I
think.
understand, but the board also is
Right,
concerned
right,
about.
we're communicating the
The board's
concerns
hearing
of.
that.
But
The
the
other
board's
thing,
gonna
there
want
was
to be able
another
to
guy
have this
there.
Yeah,
happen in a way
absolutely,
that's more
absolutely.
supported. I mean, the
Sure.
board members are
Right.
gonna say, and they've said it many times, Greg, and you know this too, like, we're not the ones who are gonna be living here. So if you have aspects of this that you want, that you think is gonna make this more palatable for you, please tell us, because we're gonna support that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Um,
You got this one guy, Roger Grayfox, looked into archaeological native Indian, said it was like $120. I don't know who he is in Junction but he was at the meeting.
Yeah,
He was also at the Stony Ridge meeting, he was also at the Pines meeting.
Okay.
well,
Like I said, the water pressure from Brian Mason was a concern with the engineer.
the water pressure, they told us to wait to run those tests
Okay.
until, when did they say? End
yeah.
of September, early October, because right now, the water pressure, because everybody's irrigating and all that is low, so that's what we're waiting on.
Sure. Now, how many bedroom apartments, how How many bedroom,
Two.
how many bedrooms you proposing are gonna be throughout this whole development?
I can figure out, okay, 53, I'm gonna have a calculator. 53 times 3, 159, figure 160.
Three bedrooms in the single-family homes?
And there is-
They're all
yeah.
3 bedrooms?
Correct.
I mean,
And then-
some will probably end up being 2
Four.
bedrooms, but we're,
Or
yeah,
four.
And
two,
some,
right.
and a couple maybe four, so average three.
So 160, and then we have,
Times
82 here. All these are 2 bedrooms, the cottages and the
And
condos.
over here we
So
got
26, we have
26,
52,
That won't change?
that will not change.
Yep.
And,
194? Did you have?
about 200 bedrooms.
200 bedrooms.
And you were proposing before,
94 times, or 92 times 2 to 3.
Did we mess up the math someplace?
3-bedroom and 4-bedroom.
Did we mess up the math?
No, you had.
This is
We had-
160.
Had
No,
more the
you-
other way.
You shorted it.
Yeah,
Oh,
well, sure.
one-
3 bedrooms,
160, okay, I'm sorry.
80
160 and 82, wait, this 42 units are 2 bedrooms each. So that's
84,
84 plus
So
52,
we're talking 300,
300.
300 bedrooms.
300 bedrooms.
In conjunction to
395.
what we had before,
Yep.
it was
We had 94 times
say 3,
3,
282.
they're about the same.
And that's also with this 6-unit.
Right, so you eliminate that.
How many bedrooms were in the apartments? How many apartments were there?
I don't, 180?
Right here.
Oh, right.
No, the
Yeah,
apartments that
the
were-
development,
that
the
was a
development.
lot. Yeah,
180
Over 200, I
apartments.
think,
yeah,
wasn't it?
that was a.
180 apartments times 2 is 360.
Right.
It was a lot.
And again, it bears repeating that the target demographic for the cottages and the apartments are the empty nesters, the young families, that the 3rd bedroom is storage.
Right,
the
they're
most-
then
the
looking to find a home
studio,
in Dayton
What's
Ashland.
your
The art
most,
gallery, whatever else you're doing.
demanding one right now?
I'm sorry?
What's your most demanding one right now out of these 3 concepts?
Well, actually, it's a toss-up between these two. Right, we sold 36 units in 1 year in Foxborough.
So that being said,
Of
if,
those, yeah.
like Marguerite said, if we swapped some design, I know it ain't a lot of area here, I get it. But if we made more, one concept up here, made it smaller and given it more definition to that property line, is you against something like that?
I'm against nothing. Okay, I'm against losing money, that's the only thing. But I don't understand what you mean, like more cottages
What
in
he's
here?
saying,
No,
yes, no, he's saying probably more of these units
Swap.
and reducing, like
I
increasing
think what
even
he's
more.
talking about is swapping this for that.
Yeah, I like this concept over there, a little
Right,
less.
in other words, less
but you ain't
impact on
gonna
the
have
neighbors,
this
but
many
you really
homes
don't-
here.
But you don't have enough room to.
Right.
I'm
Yeah.
just trying to think of less concept.
Well, but if
What
you want-
about- what if we did
I
a-
think you need more input from more people right now.
Mm.
I mean, we're a very small
Yeah.
group here.
Yeah, but you are a smart group.
It doesn't
Yeah.
help us.
No, but I,
But
but
you're
I
getting
do-
across
Yeah,
the
we
points.
need more people to contribute to this, honestly.
Yeah,
well,
and
so here's a question, is the number of single-family homes that you have, or within, a couple of shifts here and there, is that kind of a number you need to maintain, or could that be swapped out if that was the request? And possibly at the expense of putting in, possibly more numbers of cottage units, because I think as you talk about bedrooms versus unit numbers, people are gonna start to realize this is the same.
Yeah,
So
I really-
if you've got two-bedroom cottage units and you've got a 4-bedroom home, when that's two
Two
units,
versus one.
but you
But
still
the
got the
point
same number
wasn't
of
bedrooms, the
Yeah.
point was a variety of.
I understand that, and I'm not suggesting you
Right.
eliminate single-family homes
Right.
entirely, but I'm just wondering that if people start to buy into this concept, and they may or may not, I mean, we don't know,
Sure.
right?
Not
Is
all.
there ways that you could be flexible, because that single-family home piece right here has the biggest impact on the neighbors. It may be
Yeah.
less impactful if people were up for it to do the.
No, I really I do not wanna go below 50 single-family homes. This is 53, so we can swap 3
Yeah.
for 6 someplace else, I mean, that
That's
works.
what we
I
just
wouldn't
need to
do
do.
anything until the meeting.
Right,
Oh, I wouldn't say do anything before the meeting, but I just
Yeah.
think that.
We're just
Thank
trying to
you.
feel
I'll
out
tell,
if
I'll
it
tell
can
you
be
what
done.
I'm willing to do, what I'm willing to do to help the neighbors here is, I'm willing, first of all, the buffer, I'm willing to consider that. Second of all, I'm willing to commit to all of these being one level ranches, okay? So it's not as imposing or as visible to these neighbors. Now, let me make it very clear. I'm only willing to do that if I have a commitment from these neighbors that they'll support the project. I don't wanna go commit to that and then have somebody,
Appeal.
No,
Well,
just
then there's-
bring it
right,
up at the meeting,
right,
that
right.
you're willing to do something like that for them,
yeah,
you know?
if, I'm willing to do that.
I mean, we had a problem in Duxbury that, that's exactly what happened, and one of the neighbors said, I'm sorry, he doesn't represent me, he filed suit.
Who doesn't represent me?
No.
Didn't they
He's
Well,
saying,
what happened was the homeowners, there was a bunch of people as a butters in
Oh, I
Duxbury.
see, I see.
And,
They found
and they all
his
got- they all-
brother-in-law or something.
right, they all got together, exactly, but they all got together and said, well, you know,
Well, I'm
yeah, do
willing-
this, do X,
I'm
Y,
willing
and
to
Z, and we
take my
did it.
chances. If these people commit to, I'm willing to take my chances, because we have to show
Yeah,
goodwill.
Fisher, my sense is, and to Paul's point, that if someone were truly aggrieved by it and decided that they weren't going to accept you getting a permit, that would be something that you'd have to kind of settle on appeal. I mean, I wouldn't see that as something that we could,
no,
Commit
right,
to
No, no,
right,
but,
right.
but what I'm saying, Chris, is doing this is a burden on me.
yeah,
Doing this as ranches. I don't wanna do this and have that, carry that burden and still have unhappy neighbors.
and
If
I
they're gonna
don't,
be
what I'm
unhappy,
saying is,
then-
I don't think you could, protect yourself to get to that point through the language in the permit because of what Paul said.
No, and,
But why couldn't you, say, okay, we will do X, Y, and Z, absent of an appeal?
You can do that with the board, if we don't appeal the permit.
And we're telling that to the board, so the board, I don't know, that's not the
Yeah.
board's
It
responsibility.
would be
but-
our decision not to appeal the permit, but, you know, we can think about it, but I think you put forward what you
You've got a
wanna
great,
go with.
concept.
What I want is this, as proposed, that's what I want. But I'm willing to hear, I'm willing to consider any suggestions, any,
So the things that we discussed that we wanted to make sure is the run affordables, traffic study, bus stops.
What about the
walk
affordables?
path. How many affordables, we got it as 25% right now?
yeah,
We'll give them a-
that's
Yeah,
very
a
good.
start, just a
When I go to
basic
the
idea.
meeting, I'll have something proposed.
We have a multiple unit design, park for the kids, phases, we're gonna do it in 3 phases, 45 permits per year, 3 to 4 permit projects, 3 to 4 year projected project completion. And right now, we have approximately 300 bedrooms, and the last time it was 282. That's pretty much what I've got out of this
Yes.
meeting, it was
You-
anything
Do you
different.
have a bus stop in there?
Yeah, you
I
mentioned
made
bus stop.
sure,
You did, okay, I
yeah,
did.
that's where he was coming in with
Okay,
that
so-
secondary road.
I got 138 Center Street
Do you
from
recommend
traffic.
us, I'm sorry,
Go ahead. I say I also have 138 Center Street for Sully to take a look at that as well, right?
Yeah, the light and the.
Oh, I'm
It's
sure
more
he
of when the,
I'm sure he
when the
does.
when the
And
people
the
go to
speed,
work.
and the speed,
yeah.
the
Yeah,
speed
that's
that
all-
he
that's all
used
that's-
on Somerset,
Yeah.
sight distance, looking at what me, what we
We're
could
gonna
have,
have sight distance coming up
bus
over
stop,
there.
You'll coordinate with Phil?
the water
Well,
loop,
I have-
the
Now,
neighbor, the
this is-
president.
this is for the- for-
Sit down with Bill.
as,
go over
for
the
suggestions,
outcomes.
should we,
And-
when we
and
go
most
before the
cases,
board,
he will come
should we
to
present
our
this,
office, we'll go to
or
the-
should we modify it to
highlights.
reflect some of these
Result
comments?
as the
I wouldn't pay
rating, and then we go to the-
$7,000.
Well, I was
would
going to
just
say, I
highlight
mean,
something over
I
there.
think, you know, maybe saying, or even marking this up, or having the engineer do something very simple to show a buffer, if we can just
I think a
identify it on there,
buffer-
since you have the
A
room
buffer
anyway.
revision would be a really good
I
idea.
think it would.
For
Well,
the
we have
public,
to
A buffer?
explore
Yeah,
the
on the back of
road
these, yeah.
configuration.
Yeah, yeah, I'll do
So
it.
just put
Yeah,
area
yeah.
in
And
the
here,
next section.
and then
Buffer,
1 to
what
6.
else?
Put the green, yeah.
Up at the front, and I do 1 to 6 too, if they were doing anything
I
there.
know we talked about a
I'm
walk
sorry, what were you
path for
saying,
fire
Marguerite?
truck.
Yes,
Here,
yeah,
too.
we got you.
A buffer there, yeah, I
Yes.
understand.
What?
You know how we talked about
Yep.
the path, just in case the fire apparatus couldn't go by and it's a walk
Mhm.
path?
Mhm.
One of the things that I'm thinking about is the school bus.
Mhm.
That school bus is going to do that entire loop to
No.
go back out.
If we do, we can do a stop here, right?
Yeah, as long, like you have them,
Or
as long as it's back enough,
Yeah,
that-
yeah,
you
yeah,
know
we
what I
can
mean?
do it like
Because what
here.
happens, Bishop, is all the kids' mothers and fathers are
Sure.
gonna pull down here and it's gonna get a blockade.
Well, let me tell you what happened at Stony. We have this nice fancy bus stop,
Yeah, nobody goes
beautiful.
in it.
No, the bus goes all around. No, it cost me $70,000.
You understand why I'm saying, that's why I'm saying about, he said about the road, it would get the bus the hell out of there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, but
No, but
probably- no,
the
they'll
point is,
still
they'll still go all the way
They'll
around.
still go all
Just
the
to
way
pick up the
around.
kids.
Well, we have a policy, you can't walk across the house.
Oh, yeah.
I don't get that. But those are the things I wrote down, is there anything I think I missed?
Yeah, I mean, the question is more whether you task, Jacobs with doing some grading and some detail.
Well, I don't wanna task them with doing that.
That's what I'm saying,
until have
I
them.
think we have a conceptual, so to that point, I don't think we need to start altering this plan in any significant
Yeah,
way.
Chris,
You can show a buffer, if we wanna talk about whether or not we can maybe, address something about the roadway configuration preliminarily, but, I mean, the hearing is, the 15th, so we have some time, but.
Of October.
Yeah, I have
We're
plenty
getting
of
up
time.
I think we'll add the buffers to
But-
plan.
yeah,
Very,
Yeah.
very easy,
14
put on
days
here,
prior.
buffer, do not touch zone.
Which brings
Right.
in another
And he could,
subject.
you know,
Yeah,
very
that's it,
easy,
that's
something
it.
over here.
You know,
We
that's
have-
right, we have to have it 14 days prior,
prior.
don't
gonna
forget
get
But
that.
that's just one plan, they're gonna up.
Whatever
But
you're
still,
submitting
whatever they're
to
submitting.
present, we've asked.
So I have
for
until
14 days.
October 1st.
Now, we have a video that we're gonna be presenting as well.
No, that's a presentation, you want that also 2 weeks before?
I don't know.
The
No,
video doesn't
you
really
don't-
have
you don't-
information on
You
it.
don't need that.
It's a visual.
That's a
Yeah.
presentation, I think
It's
plans,
Yeah, I
plans
think
first.
plans,
Okay,
pictures,
It's not gonna be submitted to the.
as part of the public record, I think
Yeah.
it'll just be on the hearing.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
Unless
That's
you're
what I thought.
planning on giving a
No.
version, so, but these pictures, I assume you're gonna present.
Yeah,
Yeah, and something like that, I mean, I think,
Concepts of those.
That doesn't have to be.
it's not technical memoranda, if it's something that needs to be reviewed and it's technical, then surely 14 days before makes sense, but for a presentation,
Well, I think it would be helpful to have those pictures with whatever your concept plan is, if you can put them in the
But
same
we have,
scale.
this plan would
I
have
can
to
put
be.
those 11 by
submitted.
17.
That's all.
Yeah,
That's
11 by
really
17.
still, I think we need.
I mean, a packet that shows,
You sure, yep.
here's an example of this, would be a nice thing for the people who are visual people, and,
That those pictures say
and then if the
1,000 words.
public wants to come in and look at it, they see it ahead of
That's
time.
not a picture. No.
Um,
Well, yeah.
so.
Looks like a picture.
Then I think we have some guidance for
Yeah.
October 15th and a submission by October 1st, and we'll circle back, on our team and kind of figure out what else we might be able to incorporate, if anything. But Marguerite, I think it'd be helpful just to talk about where we are in the big picture, as far as.
Let me ask one question if I could. I mean, you're not really looking for an engineering review
No.
of this new material, so I mean,
So you don't really need the 14 days.
unless there's something technical.
I would do the 14 days
that-
because
Yeah,
it was
I
requested
don't,
at the
but
last
I don't think that's a problem, is what we're saying. I think we can get it by October 1st.
I think
I would say that if you go back to your office and you say, hey, wait a second, Eureka, there's some major problem here, the 14 days will give you an opportunity to do that, and you could send us a one-pager saying, I've reviewed the preliminary plan, I have X, Y, Z concerns, but otherwise, I think we've gotten your feedback.
Well,
At
and
least
and
preliminary.
frankly,
Preliminary without any.
if the board members look at this and call me up, Greg, that's something that and I'll let Zach know too. If people have particular concerns with what they see and
Yeah,
they
please
wanna
let
call
us
me
That
up,
would be great.
I can certainly provide, at least please be prepared to address this at the meeting.
Sure.
I mean, that's where the 14 days, that and the
That's a
fact
good
that
idea.
it was talked about specifically at the last meeting.
It was.
So I think to be
No, well,
fair
that's
to the
fine.
board, that's.
absolutely.
Get it
But
to the
in the
town
meantime-
administrator.
In the meantime, if you hear anything from the board,
Right.
please let us know, so we try to
Sure.
come
Well,
up.
and the board may be able to present this to some of the other town boards, because they've been communicating with them.
I have a question for you. So, the other board members can't see this until the meeting?
No, they'll get
No.
it 14 days ahead of time,
Okay.
because that's the whole
If you
idea.
submit it, if.
Well, that's why
Well,
we
we
have
can
to
give,
submit
we can
this.
give you a copy right now.
You
If
can
you're
have-
having,
I can't
if you're
do it.
having a cup of coffee with somebody, you can.
cannot.
You
It's a
can't have
quorum.
a cup of coffee, it's a quorum,
I
it's a
can't.
3-member board.
As
It's a
stupid as
3-member
it
board.
sounds, I cannot do that. I cannot go in front of
You
people.
never have a cup of coffee with those guys?
Not to talk about this.
Nope.
Really, is that the case?
It's a 3-member board, so
And
that
you
creates
don't
a
want, you don't
quorum.
want a prelim one going, you want the one.
That's
just
fine.
keep the one that's.
Yeah, you don't want that
right.
going around.
It gets too
Yeah.
confusing.
Yeah, just to finish my thought about
I'm sorry.
October 15th and where we are in the big picture. We have gotten feedback on the overall plans. And I think at this point, if we have a substantive hearing on the 15th that gives us further indication that we're going in the right direction with this plan, how do we see us kind of getting more momentum going towards a thumbs up, thumbs down, or a vote, you know, understanding that we've, I think, been at it for almost 4 months now.
Well, you know, I think it's good, I mean, given what's going on over here,
Yeah.
I think it, you know, do some additional engineering and so forth, but not go to the definitive stage until a permit is issued and that permit says you have to finish the definitive stage. That way we also know there's an appeal and all that business, rather than spending all that money in
No,
engineering.
we wouldn't
so-
have expected that, but you've gotta address, our engineers have yet to comment.
Sure, we gotta address,
You know,
yes.
We're gonna,
right.
so I guess that's where I see next meeting as you presenting your new concept. And then at that point in time, we're gonna start scheduling out meetings where, you know, the meeting after that will probably be a presentation of at least some type of engineering, whether it's our traffic engineer doing a response or, you know, Peter having some, it might be both,
Could we
having some.
cover
I
traffic?
probably won't have something at the next meeting until
Not the
I see some.
October one,
Yeah,
you mean the
following.
November one, you'll need to see some more detail?
if we have like real engineered plans, they're just gonna give us this sketch, I mean,
Yeah.
there's nothing,
Nothing to review.
No, I agree.
nothing reviewing that, so I'm
No, I'm
kinda in a
thinking, like,
stall right now.
Potentially, we
Yeah.
could have something in, if we did a November meeting, or we do an early December meeting, we may have some traffic
Well,
responses.
to the point on traffic, I mean, could we present on traffic, cause as far as the numbers, you know, we're pretty close.
Traffic doesn't, yeah.
Traffic
yeah.
shouldn't be that far off,
Yeah,
so we
Actually,
should really get
traffic
some
with this
feedback.
plan probably be reduced.
We can have the numbers reviewed and the analyses and that kind of stuff, but in terms of like the bus circulation, turning movements, that kind of stuff, we have to look at the design
Yeah.
and then comment on those.
So, I mean, I don't know if traffic is doable, it wouldn't be the October public hearing, but could it be the one after that? We'll probably wanna schedule a work session in between, and it may make sense to have a work session that has pretty close to addressing some of the.
If everybody accepts what they're gonna give as a
Right.
concept, then these
Yes.
guys can do
If you
some
guys
of
can
their
present
engineering.
at a work session, or even before the next scheduled work session, more engineering elements, then perhaps that might allow the board's representatives to have information ready for the following public hearing.
My thought is there any way to increase the frequency of the public hearings? And I think the work session for a peer review, you know, an engineering peer review of a full grading plan and utility plan wouldn't necessarily need to be a scheduled work session. We could just have another public hearing on the plan, continue to get input. The engineers will work on the details behind the scenes. But my thought is there any way to maybe, understanding that I think we've accommodated in going in a different direction, that was a big step. And I understand that's taken some additional time. But now that I think we've picked a direction, is it possible maybe to, you know, increase the frequency of the meetings and try to get things like traffic taken care of, talk about wetlands?
Well, it's gonna really depend on how quickly you guys can turn around the engineering elements
But you could,
for this plan design.
If,
There's gonna be some iteration on layout, so we need that.
once
nailed
we
down.
have the go-ahead, and we have a general go-ahead now, but after the next meeting,
Right.
if we get the go-ahead from the board, you know, that, okay, this is the direction we want, of course, I'm not expecting it to sign the plans, just to give me
why not?
direction. Then it'll take us probably a month after that to have
Well,
not finite drainage counts and all
preliminary.
that.
But I think it's better to have, at Chris's point, rather than 4 weeks, is in 2 weeks after that, is just discuss traffic.
Or is there anything
And
else? I mean,
again,
we were
the
talking.
traffic engineer is saying,
He
I
needs
can't
this.
No, 4 weeks
No,
before.
finish my
doesn't-
traffic concept if you haven't
It
finalized
doesn't,
your
it doesn't,
layout.
for site distance and all those
Yeah, I
other
think
issues.
entry site distance is an important issue, we could probably have half a hearing on that, there's a lot, I mean, clearly there were some critical concerns that were identified, so we could have half a hearing on that, half a hearing on the preliminary plan, and then get the engineering in, and then schedule the November 15th meeting, maybe have a work session. I'm just recognizing that, you know, I feel like we haven't gotten really, you know, some really good momentum as far as, you know, pushing the peer review side of it. You know, we've done this
But I
work.
believe part of the problem has been that if we've been under
Changing
the
the
impression that we were getting a different concept, so, you know, is it worth the engineers to put in their time and energy and the money
I agree with you.
until we have a concept identified? So I recognize it's taken a little bit of time to get into a new concept, but here we are, now we've really gotta get that engineering. We could certainly do a traffic public hearing on just the entranceway, but then we're gonna need to do another traffic public hearing, so you're gonna have, do you wanna have 2 traffic public hearings? That costs more
No,
money.
but he could, I think Greg can do the movement of the trucks and all that stuff.
May I suggest something?
Not until you have your.
Let me suggest something.
Yeah.
If we, let's present this at the next hearing, and I will modify it in time. And then if we have the go-ahead from the complete board, then if you can, Marguerite, suggest another meeting a month or after that. And during that month, we will have a more engineered plan than the concept plan. Greg is not very busy, he'll just work on it.
Well, so, I mean, I guess that's the question, do you want the next meeting after October 15th to be a public hearing again, or is it helpful to have it be a work session with a public hearing more in early December? Don't forget you've got the holidays coming into this, so it's gonna impact people's availability.
Yeah, I
So, you know, if
What do
you
you
do a
think?
public
think
hearing
we need
or
a
a work
public
session.
hearing, I think we need a public hearing on the 15th, and we have to push, cause I think, you know, we'll start,
But keep in mind one thing, if
so
you have a
gives you
public hearing in the week of the 15th, of the 11th of November, right? So around the 14th,
Yep.
13, 14. You're gonna need to get everything to the board
14, 2 weeks
by October 31st.
well,
So you got 2 weeks there.
Yeah.
Do you really, I mean,
Well, that's what I'm trying to, I'm trying to be
but do they really
realistic.
need, does
If you
Peter
had a
really
work
need 2
session-
weeks?
If
Is
you
that-
had a work session on the 14th, then you could possibly get stuff to us, you know, the 7th or the 8th, so at least Peter has some preliminary ability to have the work session be a little bit more productive. And he'll be working on his report, where you get the public hearing now, the week of December 2nd, that first week after Thanksgiving, and you're gonna have that ability to have, I mean, it's up to you what you want your public hearing to look like. I'm not sure you're gonna get a lot of information presented on November 15th. We will certainly spend time listening to the abutters, we have no problem doing
Yeah,
that,
I
I'm
think
sure
you're gonna
it'll
have a
take us
lot
their
of time spent on listening to the
Yeah,
public,
there-
the
that's
whole new
gonna-
Well, and that's-
concept.
Right, and that's where potentially,
And we can do that.
Well,
go
I'm
ahead.
thinking of something. I'm getting some warm feedback, not only from you guys, but from everybody in town about this, from other departments, from town officials. So maybe I should take that risk and talk to Greg and have him start the engineering right now with the modifications that we heard from, you know, the input we heard from them with the buffer and other stuff, and you and I will discuss that. Maybe we should start working on that and present the concept plan next meeting. So we won't file any engineering plans for the next meeting,
Right.
because that will only have 2 weeks to do that.
Right, right, right.
Right.
But,
So we present the concept plan for the next
I see
hearing,
stuff,
but
yeah,
then we
stuff,
will,
yeah.
2 weeks after that, we will be ready to
Then we'll have
file.
had a month,
We'll
yeah.
have had a month.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to be
Well,
fair to everybody's
Sure.
own schedules and the fact that you're running
No.
into.
that works, and then, I mean, worst case scenario, not next meeting, but the November meeting, we could focus on traffic, cause at that point, engineering will have gone through, you'll have had plenty of time. We can do traffic, and then we can do preliminary run of all the
General civil,
engineering,
yeah.
exactly, general stuff.
Yeah.
November.
Before the, yeah,
Does that make sense?
that makes sense.
Before the
That makes
December
sense.
meeting
And it was
where
just
we
a
really
question of
get
whether
into
you
it.
were willing to take the
I'll,
leap
I'll, I'll
and,
take,
yeah.
I'll take that chance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanna be fair
I think
to-
that makes sense.
Yeah.
Fair to
And
your-
I'll have the landscape architect make those modifications that you and I will discuss. So you can start also taking his plan and what he's gonna do and implementing it.
So you're gonna have
And so
that
the idea-
submitted on the 6th of November?
Um,
Now we take into
It's-
account.
I mean,
some
engineering
preliminary
by
comments that
the
come
fourth.
up.
Something like
But yeah, the week of the fourth,
Yeah,
the week of the fourth.
20th meeting.
yeah, so a week of the 4th
Oh,
of
the
November.
14th, sure, is this meeting.
What?
Right, okay.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
So
we
14th or
have,
15th?
hold on, Nicole
14th.
sent
She
me.
said 11th a little while ago.
I got,
Well, I
the
said the
week
week
of
of
the
the
11th.
11th.
Oh, so
The 11th is Veterans Day,
all I
so we
know
won't
is
be
she gave me
meeting
this,
that.
whatever's in pink is Strawberry Fields.
Oh, really?
That's what I got. So those dates work for anybody.
Oh, you have that, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
is the
cool.
week of the 11th, is the 14th on there? That's what I
The
was
week of
looking
the
at.
11th, yeah, is Monday, is, and the 14th is Thursday.
Is is that
That's
color?
on there, yeah.
That's, as a pink
Yeah.
day, okay.
So
I
let's
could
do-
either
let's
do
do-
the
let's-
12th or the 14th.
Let-
Why,
let-
so what's this here?
These are dates that were open for sessions. If
September.
we were gonna have
Oh, I
a
see,
work
okay,
session,
Up in front, alright.
what dates worked with everyone else, but obviously I'm the
If we
only
can,
one.
if we can
If we
take the
can-
14th
Yeah, if we can all plug in.
of November,
14th of
that will give,
November.
Chris, Greg, that would mean that, like, October
But the, yeah,
31st, we'd have to file the engineering plans.
Okay, and now the engineering plans are gonna be,
Preliminary grading and utilities on this.
yeah, not final design, not final
Right.
Right.
drainage
Preliminary grading.
calculations, not, you know.
I mean, we have
just-
so much data about this site
I'm
at this
asking
point.
for drainage calculations.
I can give you preliminary drainage
Preliminary, yeah,
calculations that,
yeah.
for the preliminary sizing of the basin, but the final design, it when
Yeah, no,
things could
that's,
change is.
that should be,
Final design would be post-permit.
I mean,
so
enough
then
of,
by the
October.
following meeting, we'll have final I mean,
We're
we
meeting
can,
in October.
I got that.
I mean, like in
We'll have
West
We're
Bridgewater,
meeting
we,
for a session.
cause we're gonna come, next
Oh,
meeting,
session.
we're gonna get some feedback, and so that might,
I
that,
don't know.
yeah.
I don't
we've done it
think so.
before, like,
Is
which
our
I think
meeting
was,
is the 18th?
final design came after the permit.
right,
Yes.
well, I mean, that's the way it's
After
normally
that
supposed to
meeting,
be.
actually,
Supposed to be.
That's the way it's supposed to be,
Others
so,
do it differently.
I mean,
So,
if,
I mean,
if
like-
there's
Let's
some
see- let's see
glaring
how much
The
issue,
regulations are pretty
These
clear.
are open.
if there's some glaring issue on sizing the basin,
Yeah.
proximity to wetlands, buildability.
Grading, if we're gonna
That
hit,
much,
yeah.
I think this site falls into that with the wetland buffers and everything in the site, it's gonna be tight,
Yeah, so we'll focus on all of those.
you know.
Yeah, the areas of
It was its
constraint.
downfall, the prior project.
Do you agree with the approach of 70% of the impervious area from a 100-year storm as preliminary volume for sizing the basins? That's what we used before over in West Bridgewater.
I've never seen, I've never really looked at that, I always looked at finals, so, be curious to see how that does compare.
We can figure out that. I wanted to have looked at some prior projects.
Yeah,
And when's our meeting in November?
well, we won't set that till the 15th, right?
Right.
Target meeting on
November 14th.
Okay,
I'm holding it at least for now.
I'll hold it too.
and submit
Follow
preliminary.
you, Michael, in case you,
engineering
that might be
plans.
yours.
Mhm.
Anybody want these, copies?
Yeah, I could.
Let's not,
By
well,
17th,
I don't want too many
Okay.
Right, 'cause we're gonna
versions.
make a
In
change,
2 weeks,
couple
in
changes,
2 weeks
yeah.
I'll file
Yeah.
a revised one based on these comments.
Can I
Right.
just keep
They're
it
gonna
to,
be
as a
online.
for-work session, because I may need to reference
Yeah,
back
you-
to
yeah,
things,
sure.
so.
Do you want this one, Margaret?
No, I'll just,
This small one.
I think I lost mine, right?
I still, I think I took yours.
Yeah, somebody's got one of those for.
I
Can I keep mine?
Yeah, you can
Fine.
keep
I
that.
wrote on mine.
You know what, keep these, actually, I have, it's fine,
Okay.
you got those.
All right,
So
well,
with the opposite.
just gonna put it in the folder.
November 14th, yes.
All right,
So we are meeting November 14th,
That's at 7, right?
6. Oh,
it's usually at 7:00, yeah.
the regular meetings, I don't care.
The public hearings, I think they've
I'll
been
do that
set
too.
for 7.
7?
Yeah, I think to give the public opportunity
The
to
later the
come.
better for me, I was just trying to help
So-
everybody
Yeah,
else.
I have it written down as.
So this is now
14th,
official, the,
No, it's not official, it's tentative, the
Tentative.
14th.
That's tentative, because we gotta officially set it at the.
at the hearing.
At the hearing. And then I think the other thing they're gonna talk about is the site visit, trying to reschedule that to later in October, maybe
After
possibly, yeah, we've gotta think about dust and everything at that point in time, but after the frost, or maybe even early November. You don't wanna have snow, but,
Yeah, it's nice to have the leaves down.
yeah, that's what we were,
That's
that
whenever,
was what Chris and I were discussing at one point in
Yeah.
time too, so.
It's
I
possible
think
to
the
have it during
biggest
the day.
issue is that we have a lot of board members whose schedules prohibit them from being during the day, unless we possibly had something really set, so.
On a Saturday, why not?
We suggested a Saturday, that might be a possibility, but I know some people, like Zach works all day on Saturday, so I think a Saturday would be a
whatever works for the
not,
board works for
the
us.
less preferred option. So I think we're just gonna need to talk about this with the board member
Sure.
schedule. So Greg, I know you're not having a meeting this month,
Right.
But, if you happen to run into board members, I don't
Yep.
feel this is a violation to just say, ask people to get me their afternoon schedules, I haven't heard from everyone, and send an email about it, or Nicole, I don't care.
Well, this.
That's
oh,
just the evening schedules.
Okay,
that's
so
it.
afternoons,
So afternoon schedules and availability, if they haven't
for
met,
what
sent me,
dates, what are you thinking, next
Just-
month?
October, November,
Well, as you stated, I know Zach works weekends, so it's
I
gonna
mean,
have.
Zach I reach and talk to fairly regularly,
Yeah,
but
I mean, I can make availability,
Right.
I'm gonna be.
When is the triple E season over?
the
Frost.
First frost.
Frost.
Yeah, I'm gonna be in Nantucket the first week of October.
yeah.
Well, the later,
Well, we wouldn't be able to set it until the October 15th meeting.
after that.
So it'd have to be
Just so
after
everybody
that.
knows that,
I mean, triple E is impacting things all over the place.
Everything.
Yeah, so it's just, it is what it is, and we're
You
gonna.
only need the voting members, you want all members?
I think all members should, I think all members
Notify
wanna go. They all wanna go. I've
Okay.
heard from a couple who are non-voting members that I really would like to be able to participate. Not something I plan on attending, but
Come on.
Why not?
You don't wanna see a bunch of
never
trees?
got a site visit.
He's gonna do one of those aerial.
Okay.
photos.
Right.
I leave
We're gonna
it
hire
alone.
an airplane.
That's what you do.
The
Yeah,
last
you
thing
can
I
sit-
wanna do is.
That's what you're,
Straight
we'll
up in
sit
the
at the
helicopter.
entrance, you can
Yeah.
follow us with the drone
That's
the whole way
okay.
through.
That's fine. You can just take a video of it and put it on YouTube and I'll just
There
look
you
at the
go.
transcript.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can read the transcript.
It's not the same.
You didn't know that trick? Oh, that's a
I
good
did
one.
not know that trick, so I'm glad they did.
How recent is that? I haven't seen that before.
I love Google, do you use Google Translate? That's my
Oh, yeah, I
favorite
have,
all the time.
Dutch and
But like where
Japanese
you can do it with
All set.
pictures and,
Thank
yeah,
you.
that's awesome.
My,
Oh, you're, yeah.